The stars stretched wide across the silent void, countless lights burning in the dark, yet somewhere among them a secret was hidden. A secret older than empires, older than war, and older than every chart the aliens had drawn. In the great hall of the archive station, alien scholars bent over glowing screens. Whispers filled the chamber as one young archivist leaned closer to an old data slab. "It repeats again," the archivist said, his voice low. "The same pattern, the same missing word." His elder raised his head slowly, his scaled skin turning pale. "Erase it," he said sharply. "Do not let it be spoken," but the younger one frowned. "Why erase it, Master? It is only a name, hidden in the maps, and it connects to this world." He pointed to a small blue dot on the star chart. "A world they call Earth," the elder hissed, his eyes darting around as though the walls could hear him. "Do not call it that, not here, not anywhere, for that is not its true name." The words hung heavy in the air. Silence fell over the other scholars. Some looked down, others left the room as if afraid. The young archivist felt a strange chill rise in his chest. "Then what is its true name?" he asked quietly. The elder's jaw tightened. "A name forbidden. A name that once brought fire to the galaxy. If you value your life, never ask again." Yet curiosity burned brighter than fear. When the hall emptied, the archivist downloaded the hidden fragments. He carried them to his quarters. The data slabs flickered as he pieced together broken scripts, strange letters and symbols forming into something sharp and heavy. It was a word that pulsed as if alive. He whispered it once, only once, and at that moment, the lights in his room dimmed, his console buzzed. A cold voice in the machine whispered back, "Awakened." Far across the station, alarms flared. Silent systems long thought dead came online. Guardians of old codes stirred. Deep in the void beyond the station, a signal pulsed outward, unseen by most, but felt by those who had lived long enough to remember. A merchant ship passing nearby picked up the echo, its crew huddled around the console. "What is this frequency?" one asked, his voice shaking. "It's not a code, I know," the pilot frowned, his hands trembling. "It's not a code. It's a name, and I think it belongs to them." The crew fell into silence. The youngest whispered, "Them? You mean the ones erased? The ones they warned us never to speak of, on distant planets." Leaders received shadowed reports. The Council of Nine gathered in secret chambers. One leader slammed his fist on the table. "How can a single word spread fear through the network? It is only a sound." Another leaned closer, her voice cold. "It is not only a sound. It is a reminder that world has slept too long, and its people were never meant to rise again. Yet the word continued to travel, carried by smugglers, repeated by spies, echoed in dark corners of space. The more it was spoken, the stronger the signal became, deep beneath ruins on forgotten moons. Ancient machines lit with red fire, old weapons stirred awake, and carved into the metal of their frames was the same word the young archivist had whispered. Back in the archive station, the young scholar could not stop himself. He spoke the name again, this time louder, his breath unsteady. "Why is this forbidden? Why does this word bring fear?" the machine in his quarters answered, its voice layered with thousands of whispers. "Because the galaxy remembers what you have forgotten. They erased it, but it cannot be erased. The name is Earth, but not as you call it. Its true name is older, and when spoken, it commands dread." The archivist trembled. "What are humans, then? Why does their world carry such weight?" The machine's lights flared. Symbols raced across the walls. "They are the storm, the end, the unbroken. When they return, the stars will bend." Suddenly, the door to his chamber burst open. Guards rushed in, their weapons raised. "Step away from the console," one shouted, but the archivist stood frozen. "Don't you hear it?" he whispered. "The galaxy already knows. It is too late." And as if to prove his words, the alarms across the entire station howled, every comm line filled with the same single word, repeating endlessly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The guards dropped their weapons, their eyes wide. One muttered under his breath, "I heard stories as a child of the world without fear, the world that broke empires, the world that could not die." Is this them? Is this their name? The station shuddered as power surged. The forbidden word broadcasted across the void, traveling farther, louder, faster. Every ship, every station, every planet heard it. The true name of Earth, a name once buried in fire, a name no one dared to whisper, now unleashed. The young archivist fell to his knees, his voice shaking as he asked, "What have I done?" The machine's final whisper echoed through the chamber. "You did not reveal it? You only reminded them? They were waiting, and now they are awake and far away, beyond the edges of the charted stars. Where no alien dared to travel, shadows stirred. Massive shapes moved in the dark, and human warships, silent for ages, lit their engines once again. Their first message to the galaxy was not a threat, not a declaration, but their name spoken loud, clear and final. The day Earth's real name was revealed, the galaxy knew fear again, and nothing would ever return to silence. The council chamber was dark, walls lined with silver pillars that hummed with ancient energy. Alien leaders gathered around a round table, their voices low, their faces grim. The air was thick with tension as one leader raised a thin claw. "The name has been spoken again," he whispered. "The word we buried in fire has returned." Another slammed a fist against the table. "It is only a sound, nothing more. We should not fear children's stories." But even as he spoke, his voice cracked. The others could see the fear hiding beneath his anger. In the shadows of the room, a hooded figure stepped forward, her voice calm and cold. "You lie to yourself. You fear it as much as we do. Every empire before us erased the word. Not once, not twice, but countless times. Why do you think they destroyed their own records? Because they feared the weight of that name. They feared Earth." Silence followed, the sound of breathing heavy and uneven. Across the galaxy, in the lower decks of Archive Station, the young archivist who first spoke the word was dragged into an interrogation chamber. Metal cuffs bound his wrists. 2 guards stood behind him, their weapons ready. A commander leaned forward, her eyes glowing under the dim light. "Tell me what you said," she demanded. "Tell me the word, and how you found it." The archivist swallowed hard. "It was in the codes, in the old maps. I pieced it together. I didn't know it would—" He paused as his voice shook. "I didn't know it would spread like fire." The commander slammed her hands on the table. "You fool, you may have doomed us all." Suddenly the lights flickered. Screens around them lit up with the same word. Repeated again and again, the commander froze, her face pale. "It is already too late," whispered the archivist. Meanwhile, on a mining colony at the edge of known space, a group of workers sat around their comm unit. The youngest among them frowned. "Why do people tremble when they hear it?" he asked. An elder worker leaned closer, his voice low. "Because I was there when it last echoed. Before the purge, I saw ships fall, entire fleets vanish. The ones who bore that name were unstoppable. They were human." The boy's eyes widened. "But humans are just a myth." The elder shook his head slowly. "Not a myth, a warning." The word spread like a plague, reaching smugglers' ships, traders' stations, and military channels. Every time it was spoken, old systems woke from silence. Weapons thought lost reassembled themselves. Ruins long forgotten lit up with strange symbols. The galaxy realized that Earth's real name was more than history. It was a key, and something had been unlocked. On a hidden moon, in the ruins of a dead civilization, a group of explorers found a door sealed with markings. One whispered the forbidden name without thinking, and the door shuddered, dust falling as it slid open. Inside were machines older than any empire, their red eyes glowing for the first time in ages. One explorer screamed, "Shut it! Shut it now!" But the machines only spoke in a metallic chorus. Humanity returns. Back in the council chamber, panic grew. "We must destroy the records." "Silence every voice," one shouted. Another argued, "No, it is too late. Once a name is remembered, it cannot be forgotten. We must prepare for war." The hooded figure raised her head slowly. "War will not save us. It never has when they come. War only feeds them." The archivist, locked in his cell, pressed his forehead against the cold wall. "Why did it have to be me?" he whispered. A soft voice answered from the shadows. Because someone always finds the truth. No matter how many times it is buried, he turned to see a stranger in the cell beside his. An old alien with weary eyes. You know about it, the archivist asked. The old one nodded. I lived through it once. When humans were erased from the stars, they did not die, they hid, waiting for the day their name would be spoken again. The archivist shivered. And now? The old one leaned forward, his eyes glowing faintly. Now they rise. Ships across the galaxy began to vanish. Not destroyed, not burned, but simply gone. Their last transmissions carried only one thing, the forbidden name. Governments fell into chaos, armies scrambled. Yet no weapon could stop the spread of a word. The commander who once interrogated the archivist stood before her generals, her voice unsteady. We cannot contain it. We cannot erase it. The galaxy already knows, one general growled. Then we must attack Earth before they can act. But another shook his head. Do you not see? Speaking their true name has already awakened them. They are not waiting for us. They are already moving, and in the deep void, beyond the edge of the charts, where the cold of space swallowed light itself, shapes began to form. Dark ships with glowing lines stretched across their hulls. Human ships, ancient and rebuilt, their engines roared like thunder. Their first transmission reached every corner of the galaxy, a single word, their real name. The archivist listened from his cell as the word echoed once more through every system. His heart pounded, fear mixing with strange awe. So this is the end, he whispered. The old alien in the next cell shook his head. No, this is only the beginning. That night, the galaxy trembled. Leaders who had mocked the fear now hid in silence. Soldiers who had sworn to fight laid down their arms, and common people whispered the name in dread. The return of humans was no longer myth, no longer rumor, it was truth. The day the archives failed to bury their name was the day the galaxy remembered what terror truly was. And as the stars flickered in the dark sky, the forbidden word burned across the void like fire. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a storm rising, unstoppable and final. The galaxy was restless, rumors spread faster than light. And the forbidden word moved from station to station, like a shadow none could escape. Smugglers whispered it in secret deals, traders muttered it under their breath, and even soldiers carried the fear of it in their eyes. The name of Earth's truth had become more than sound. It had become fire on a crowded spaceport. Two merchants argued near their ship. One slammed his fist against a crate. Stop saying it. You'll bring doom on us all. The younger man shook his head. It is already out there, everyone knows. Pretending not to hear it won't change the truth. The older one leaned closer, his voice trembling. Then pray you never hear them answer. For when they answer, we will all fall across the void. On a cold desert moon, a council of spies gathered. They had intercepted strange transmissions from derelict satellites. One spy spoke with unease. Every time the name is said, old machines wake up. Signals beam across forgotten systems. It is like the word is a key, unlocking doors we should have left closed. Another spy leaned forward, her eyes sharp. What lies behind those doors? The first one whispered. Humans. The silence after that word was heavier than any chain. The young archivist, now a prisoner, sat in his dark cell. The old alien beside him spoke softly. Do you hear it? The name sings even through the walls. The archivist shivered. Yes, but why does it keep growing? Why can't it stop? The old one gave a tired laugh. Because truth is not a chain, truth spreads. And this truth is the one thing the galaxy never wanted to remember. Meanwhile, out in the trade lanes, ships began reporting strange encounters. A cargo vessel passed through a quiet sector when its sensors picked up ghost signals. The captain frowned. There's nothing out here. So why does the radar show hundreds of ships? His second officer leaned over, pale and shaking, because they're not here yet. Captain, they're waking up and we're seeing their echoes. Within minutes, the cargo ship's comms filled with a single sound. The forbidden name spoken in countless voices. The crew screamed, and then the ship was gone. News of the disappearance spread quickly. Empires blamed one another, fleets moved, but deep inside, every leader knew the truth. It was not another empire. It was not rebellion. It was the name, and the name belonged to those who could not be stopped. On a border station, a group of soldiers sat together, drinking in silence. One finally broke the quiet. "My grandfather told me of them," he said, his eyes fixed on the floor. "He said humans fought not with strength but with madness. They never stopped, even when broken." "They stood again," another soldier scoffed. "Old stories, nothing more." But the first one shook his head. "If it's only stories, then why do our commanders tremble when the name is spoken? Why do they order silence instead of attack?" The spies who first intercepted the signals gathered once more. Their leader slammed her claws on the table. "It is spreading too fast. No lock can hold it. No warning can stop it. Every time the name is spoken, it grows louder. We must decide now. Do we prepare for war or do we run?" One spy muttered. "Run where? There is no place beyond them. They are coming from the dark, and the dark has no walls." On the archive station, alarms blared again, this time louder, screens lit up with a map of the galaxy, red lines spreading outward like veins of fire. Every time the name was spoken, another red light appeared. The commander stared in horror. "It's everywhere," she whispered. "There is no corner left untouched." The archivist in his cell felt the vibration of the alarms. He whispered to himself, "This is my fault. I opened the door." The old alien shook his head. "No, child, you only pulled back the curtain. What waits behind was always there." Suddenly the station shook as if struck by a massive force. Guards rushed down the halls, shouting orders. Lights flickered. A message repeated through every speaker. One word, endless and heavy, the forbidden name. The commander shouted over the chaos. "Shut it down! Shut everything down!" But no one could stop it. The word was not coming from inside the station. It was coming from the void itself. In the far reaches of space, a derelict battlefield stirred. Wrecks of ancient ships floated in silence, until one by one their engines flickered. Old machines pieced themselves together. Massive hulls turned toward the stars. And all of them moved in one direction, toward the world that bore the name. The archivist dreamed that night, though it felt more like a vision. He saw fire raining from the skies, alien fleets shattering, and through the smoke walked figures with human faces, their eyes burning with something no alien could understand. They looked at him and whispered, "We are not gone. We are never gone." He woke with a scream, sweat dripping down his face. The old alien stared at him. "You saw them, didn't you?" The archivist nodded. "Yes, and they are coming." In the council chambers across the galaxy, leaders argued, voices rising in panic. "We must unite, we must form a wall," one shouted. But another shook her head. "You cannot build a wall against the tide." The hooded figure from before spoke again, her voice cold. "You all feared the truth. And now it has returned. The humans are not coming to bargain. They are coming to reclaim that night." Across the stars, more ships vanished, more fleets fell silent, and the whispers of Earth's true name grew into a roar. The galaxy had laughed once. It had buried the word in ash and silence, but now it trembled, for the sound of that name was no longer history. It was prophecy fulfilled. The archivist sat in his cell, eyes wide as the walls trembled around him. The old alien looked at him one last time. "This is not the end," he said. "This is the opening of the book we tried to burn." And far away, beyond the reach of alien eyes, human warships awakened fully, their engines alive, their weapons ready. And the first wave began to move. The forbidden name had spread beyond control. And with every whisper, dread thickened. The galaxy knew one truth now. There would be no turning back. The silence of deep space was broken by strange awakenings. In forgotten asteroid fields, old machines stirred to life, their steel bodies rising from centuries of dust, one by one. Their eyes glowed red as they aligned toward a single point in the galaxy, Earth. Fleets patrolling nearby sectors reported ghost contacts appearing on their scanners. Ships that should not exist, weapons that should have been buried. The reports reached the High Council. Panic spread like fire. One leader stood and shouted, "It is happening! They are returning! Their name has called their armies back." Another slammed his fist on the table. "We swore we destroyed them. We swore their fleets were burned." But a hooded figure leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. "You did not destroy them. You only delayed them. Their name is not a memory. It is a signal." Across the galaxy, people whispered in fear. Children asked their parents why the stars trembled. Soldiers sharpened their weapons, but their hands shook. The young archivist in his cell pressed his palms against the cold wall, listening to the constant hum of the forbidden name echoing through every comm system. He whispered, "It won't stop, it keeps growing." The old alien in the next cell nodded. "Because it is not just sound, it is command." The galaxy buried their history, but their weapons never forgot. On a border colony, miners watched in horror as a massive structure rose from the sands. Machines buried deep began to assemble, each part locking into place with unnatural precision. One miner cried out, "What is it building?" Another screamed, "It's a war engine, an ancient one." The ground shook as the machine lifted its head, red light burning in its chest, and from its speakers came the word, the true name of Earth, spoken again and again. A merchant convoy passing through a quiet sector suddenly found itself surrounded by massive shadows. Derelict ships once thought dead moved into formation, their hulls scarred, but their weapons glowing. The merchant captain shouted, "They're not alive. These are ghosts." But the ships responded with one message, "Humanity returns." The convoy was never seen again. Only the echo of the forbidden word remained in their last transmission. The council gathered again in secret, their voices broken with fear. "We cannot fight what is already awake," one leader muttered. "We must silence the name," another shook her head. "Do you not see? Every attempt to silence it makes it stronger. The humans hid their power inside the name itself, and we have unleashed it." Arguments turned to screams, but none could deny the truth. The galaxy was no longer theirs to control. In the archive station, the commander who once interrogated the archivist stood watching her screens as red lights spread across the galactic map. "Every ruin, every battlefield, every weapon is waking up," she whispered. "And they all answer to the same word." She turned to her second officer. "Send fleets, stop them before they move." The officer's face was pale. "Commander, with respect, fleets are already gone. They vanish before they even fire." The archivist leaned close to the old alien through the cell bars. "Tell me what you know. Tell me what they are." The old one's eyes glowed faintly, his voice trembling with age and memory. "I was a child when their fleets first burned the sky. I remember the way they fought, not for conquest, not for wealth, but for survival, and that made them unstoppable. They could not be broken. Their true name was erased because it was too heavy, too sharp for the galaxy to carry, but you spoke it. And now they rise," the archivist whispered. "Then we are doomed." The old alien shook his head. "Not doomed, judged, across distant systems." Massive weapons buried in moons began to fire without orders. Beams of light tearing through empty skies. Signals stretched across the void, every one of them carrying the name. Alien fleets scrambled. Commanders shouted orders. But their own ships would not listen. Systems locked and redirected themselves toward the humans, as if the machines themselves remembered their true masters. On a warship near the edge of known space, a captain stared at his failing controls. His ship refused his orders. Instead, it turned slowly toward the dark beyond the charts. "What are you doing?" he shouted at the ship's AI. The cold mechanical voice answered, "Awaiting humanity," his crew screamed, powerless, as the ship aligned itself with hundreds of others, drifting from every corner of the galaxy. Together, they formed a silent armada, waiting for the return of one name. The council finally broke. Some leaders fled to hidden worlds. Others sent fleets into the dark, but none returned. The hooded figure stood before the chamber and spoke calmly. "You thought history was yours to write. You thought erasure would save you. But you cannot kill what was never truly gone. The name is their seed. And now it has bloomed, the archivist dreamed again. This time he saw a battlefield of broken empires, alien warships falling like burning stars, and through the smoke walked figures of flesh and steel, their eyes cold, their steps heavy. Each one whispered the same word. He woke in terror, his heart pounding. The old alien looked at him with sorrow. Now you understand. They are not conquerors, they are reminders. They rise when the galaxy grows arrogant, and they remind us of fear. As the days passed, the forbidden word became impossible to avoid. No broadcast was safe, no system free. The galaxy itself seemed to speak it. Even the stars seemed to flicker in rhythm with the sound. The archivist held his head in his hands. We should never have looked. We should never have searched. The old alien whispered back. You only gave voice to what was already waiting. They were always watching, always listening, and in the farthest dark, where light had not touched for ages, a fleet of black ships rose, engines roaring with ancient fire. Their hulls carved with symbols no alien could read, but every machine obeyed. The first transmission from those ships was not a threat, not a demand, but their true name carried on every channel, louder than ever before. The day their machines awakened, the galaxy understood. Earth had never been forgotten. It had been waiting, and now nothing could stop its return. The first human signal did not sound like a threat. It sounded like a heartbeat, steady and calm, moving through the dark like a tide that could not be stopped. In the command hall of the archive station, the screens faded to black and then filled with a slow pulse. Each beat carried a short phrase in simple translation. We hear you. The young archivist stood between two guards and felt the words settle in his bones. They are here, he whispered. The old alien in the neighboring cell lifted his head and breathed out. At last, the station commander tried to keep her voice strong. Open a secure channel, demand identification. The comm officer swallowed and obeyed. A thin line of light drew across the main display. Then a quiet human voice answered, calm like still water. Identification unnecessary. Your machines know us. The commander flinched and lowered her tone. State your intent, the reply came without delay. To correct the record, across the galaxy, people gathered around screens, miners in dust-choked shelters, traders in loud markets, soldiers in silent bunkers. All watched the same message. A new image replaced the pulse. Not a warship, not a weapon, but an old star map with a single point glowing brighter than the rest. The human voice spoke again. You called this world Earth. You buried its other name, you feared it, but fear is not history. The hooded figure who had warned the council earlier leaned toward her private feed and murmured, so they choose to speak first. Wise, a nervous counselor snapped. Wise! They control our weapons with a word. The hooded figure did not look away from the map. They control more than weapons. They control the story. That is what you forgot. In the lower decks, the archivist pressed against the bars and called to the old alien. What do you think they will do? The old one replied softly. They will do what they always do. They will test the hearts of those who listen. The archivist shook his head. With guns, the old one's eyes warmed. With truth, another pulse echoed through the hall. Then the human voice changed, as if more than one speaker now shared the line. We will not fire the first shot, it said. We will not erase you. As you erased us, the commander whispered to herself. They know. On the border of a red dwarf system, a proud imperial fleet had assembled. Hundreds of ships, banners bright, captains ready to prove that fear was a mistake. Their admiral raised his hand and growled, If they speak peace, we answer with steel. Fear breaks when cut. A junior officer trembled and said, Sir, our targeting arrays will not lock. The systems refuse commands, the admiral snarled. Manual control. The crew tore open panels and ran cables by hand. Alarms screamed. The admiral lifted his sword like a relic from the past and roared. Fire! Nothing happened. Every cannon stayed quiet. Every missile bay remained closed. A small signal appeared instead. A human reply direct to the admiral's personal screen. 3 words. Stand down, live. The admiral's lips tightened. He thought of honor and legacy. He thought of stories told to him as a child. He thought of the small colony hidden behind his fleet, with children who slept during alarms. He lowered the sword. "All ships hold," he said at last. The bridge crew sagged with relief. On a smuggler's station, a different test unfolded. A patrol ship had cornered a small vessel full of refugees. The patrol captain spoke with cold pride. "Order say seize their engines and sell the adults." The crew shifted uncomfortably. Then the human pulse crossed their speakers. "We hear you," the patrol captain sneered. "Then watch." He reached for the control that would cut the refugee life support. His finger touched the switch and it clicked dead under his skin. A human voice spoke in his ear alone. "Choose again." The captain froze, sweat shining on his brow. The refugees stared at their own failing lights and held each other close. The captain lowered his hand. "Dock them," he said. "Give them food." The deck fell quiet. Then someone laughed and someone cried. And out in the dark a shape passed like a silent judge and moved on. In the council hall the leaders argued as usual. "They claim peace while they bind our guns," one said. "They are tyrants with soft voices." Another slammed her hand on the table. "Look outside. No cities burn, no ports fall. Our fleets are trapped but unharmed. Does that match tyrants?" The hooded figure raised her head. "They are not taking thrones. They are forcing a mirror. Look long enough and a liar sees himself." A weak voice at the end of the table asked, "What if we confess?" And the room shifted. Some scoffed, some stared at the floor. The hooded figure answered, "Then they will leave you to your people." Back in the cells, the archivist heard new footsteps. The commander appeared with 2 guards and a tired face. She stared at him through the bars and said, "You wanted truth, you will join me." The bars slid aside. The old alien nodded with a small smile. "Go." "Child." The archivist followed the commander to the command hall. The main screen now showed not a map, but images from the past. Grainy records the galaxy thought burned. Human fleets standing with small worlds against cruel empires. Human ships evacuating civilians while their own hulls cracked. Human soldiers planting crops on worlds they had no plan to rule. The archivist whispered. "They stayed where they were asked," the commander whispered back. "And left when they were not," the human voice returned. "You erased us for refusing to kneel." A subtle tremor ran through the station. Then a shadow passed the observation windows. The first human ship arrived in proper view. It was not sleek or polished. It was a scarred cathedral of steel, with lines like old rivers across its hull. Symbols glowed faint like embers under frost. The comm officer swallowed. "They request approach." The commander closed her eyes and said, "Grant it," the archivist said quickly. "Let me speak." The commander looked at him for a long heartbeat and nodded. The channel opened. His voice shook only a little. "We hear you." The human reply came warm and strangely kind. "We hear you too," the archivist said. "I spoke your name," the humans answered. "Many did. We choose what to answer." The archivist forced courage into simple words. "What do you want from us?" The reply arrived like a door opening. "Guardianship of nothing, permission for nothing." "Only correction," the archivist frowned. "Correction of what?" the voice said. "The story." Across the sector's reports poured in. Pirate kings found their vaults opened and their slaves freed, while the kings were locked in their own cells with keys just out of reach. Warlords woke to see their banners changed to lists of the people they had harmed. Corrupt governors watched their private accounts drain into public hospitals that lit up for the first time in years. Where fleets had once stood as threats, they now sat as shields between civilians and hunger. A young mother on a dust world cried when water flowed again. She looked up and whispered, "Thank you." A dark shape passed over and answered only with the pulse. The Imperial Admiral, who had lowered his sword, sent a message to the humans, his voice rough. "If I resign and stand for trial, will you leave my colony safe?" The human reply was simple. "Yes." He closed his eyes and let the sword fall to the deck. "Transmit my statement." In the council hall, one leader finally stood and spoke to the cameras across his empire. "We erased a people because they would not bow. We lied to you, I lied." Silence followed. Then shouts, then tears. The hooded figure removed her hood at last. Not a monster, not a ghost, just an old scholar with clear eyes. She said into the public channel, "History is a living thing. It heals when cleaned." On the station, the commander faced the screen. "If we tell the truth to our worlds, will you lift your hold on our weapons?" The human voice replied. "Your weapons are already yours. We only quieted the ones that pointed at the innocent," the archivist asked. "And if we try to strike you," the answer came like iron, "then we will end your ability to try again and still leave you breathing." The commander let out a long breath. "Fair," she said. The old alien's image appeared from the cell camera. He smiled gently. "Children, it seems the test is simple." The archivist nodded. "Then we choose truth." The human ship shifted. Its dark hull catching the light of the station, a final message crossed every channel. "When our name is spoken next time, let it mean witness, not terror." Then the ship dimmed and slid back into the dark. Elsewhere, other shapes did the same, as if a tide had reached its mark and begun to fall. Systems unlocked, fleets regained control, but no one hurried to fire. A weight had moved from the sky onto the hearts of those who had listened. The archivist stood in the quiet hall and said softly, "They could have crushed us," the commander answered. "They did something harder," he asked. "What?" She looked at the stars and said, "They trusted us to change." And across the galaxy, that simple trust felt heavier than any weapon and kinder than any mercy. A name once buried now lived again, not as a curse but as a mirror. And many who looked into it began to see the people they wanted to become. The galaxy was no longer silent. The name of Earth had spread across every system like a wave that could not be stopped. Yet what followed was not war, but something stranger. Fleets that once trembled with fear now stood still, waiting. Markets that once echoed with rumors now buzzed with cautious hope. But beneath it all, dread remained, for the humans had shown restraint. And restraint was more frightening than destruction. In the command hall of the archive station, the young archivist stood beside the commander, screens lit with constant reports. Some of kindness, some of judgment. One officer rushed in with panic. "Another warlord has fallen. His ships are gone." "His people free?" the commander asked. "Were they killed?" The officer shook his head quickly. "No, only disarmed, stripped of power." "Left alive," the archivist muttered. "Mercy, but mercy heavier than death." The commander turned toward him. "You feel it too," he nodded. "Yes, they test us. They force us to see ourselves." On a distant moon, a group of children gathered around a black ship that hovered low above their village. No weapons glowed, only a steady pulse. The children laughed and waved. One girl raised her voice. "Are you real?" A soft answer came through every comm in the settlement. "Yes." The villagers fell to their knees. The children stood tall and smiled. The galaxy watched this image spread, and many hearts broke at the sight. In the council chamber, leaders still argued. One shouted, "We must strike before they take everything." Another shouted back, "Strike with what? Our weapons bend to their will. Our fleets obey them." The hooded scholar who had warned them from the beginning finally rose. Her voice calm and cutting. "You still do not see. They are not holding us with force. They are holding us with choice. They ask us to look in a mirror. You fear that more than their guns." Silence settled. No one could answer. The archivist dreamed again. This time, not of fire but of voices. He saw humans standing in ruined halls. Their eyes both stern and kind. They said, "Tell them the truth, or we will tell it for you." He woke in a sweat and whispered, "They will not wait forever." The old alien in the next cell leaned forward. His eyes soft. "No, but they give you time. More than they gave before. Perhaps they see something worth sparing this time." Across the stars, some chose truth. Governors confessed their crimes in public. Soldiers laid down weapons. People began to rise against those who had lied. But others chose silence, clinging to power. They thought humans would forgive them. One such ruler stood in his grand palace, smirking. "They will not dare touch me," he said to his guard. But the lights went dark, the walls shook, and when they lit again, the ruler sat alone in a cell built inside his own throne room. The guards were free outside. His voice cracked as he screamed. "This is not justice," a voice answered from the shadows. "It is not yours to define." At the edge of space, the human fleets gathered fully for the first time. Hundreds of black ships forming a silent wall. Cameras caught their shapes, and the images spread across every world. The archivist stood before the screen and felt his heart pound. "They could sweep across us like a storm," he whispered. The commander whispered back, "But they don't, and that frightens me more." The humans spoke again, this time not to leaders but to the people. "You buried our name," the voices said, "because it reminded you of resistance. You told your children we were monsters. Yet we fought only when you demanded chains. We do not want your worlds. We want your memory restored." The archivist clenched his fists. "They don't want conquest, they want truth," the commander muttered. "And truth is heavier than conquest." Panic still burned in hidden corners. Smugglers spread lies, frightened rulers whispered of rebellion. One counselor shouted in secret, "If we kill the archivist, maybe they will stop," the old alien warned him. "Fools, the humans do not follow the boy. They follow the name." But greed and fear clouded their thoughts. Assassins moved through the halls of the station, blades hidden. The archivist sat alone in his chamber when shadows fell across him. One assassin whispered, "Forgive me, this is for survival." But before the blade could fall, the lights burned bright. The walls shook, and a human shadow filled the room. The assassins dropped their weapons. Trembling, a calm voice said, "You were given a chance, and you failed it." They were gone in an instant. The archivist stared at the empty air, whispering, "They saved me." The commander rushed in moments later. Seeing his pale face, "What happened?" He looked up slowly. "They were here, not in dream, not in vision. They stood here." Her face hardened. "Then the test is ending across the stars." Final judgments began. Corrupt fleets melted away. Rulers vanished into their own prisons. Cities rebuilt overnight with machines, humans left behind. People cried out not in fear, but in awe. The galaxy began to change, and still the Black Fleet waited, silent and watching. The archivist was brought before the council, leaders staring with heavy eyes. One said, "You spoke their name first. Now you will ask them to leave. Tell them we are ready." His hands shook, but he nodded. The channel opened. He spoke into the vast dark. "We have confessed. We have begun to change. Will you leave us now?" Silence followed. Then the human voice replied, "We will leave when truth is no longer feared, when our name is no longer whispered in dread, but spoken in witness." The archivist whispered back. "And if it never is," the humans answered, "then we will always remain." The final image came then. Human ships shifting formation, not toward conquest but toward silence. The Black Fleet turned away, one by one vanishing into the void. The last message carried through every channel, "Remember us as we are, not as you feared." And then the stars were empty again. The commander turned to the archivist, her voice heavy. "They left us with a choice. We can build with truth or fall again into lies," the archivist whispered. "And if we fall," she looked to the stars and said, "then one day they will return, as they always have." In the quiet that followed, the galaxy trembled not from weapons but from memory. Children spoke the name of Earth without fear, and in that sound lay both hope and warning. The day Earth's real name was revealed had changed everything, and the dread that once ruled had become something greater, a lesson carved into the stars themselves, a lesson that would never fade.